Hello, Aunt Inez. How are you doing? This is your nephew, Eugene Mack, of course, and I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you, and I wanted to give you this video to let you know that I am going to honor what I said, and that is so you can see me and hear me. So I'm sitting here in my room in Chicago. My wife and I came down to work, so we stay in here for like 2 days, and then we'll go back home. But it's been just a wonderful blessing to be able to have conversations with you and to hear your voice. Your voice is so strong. Your love for God is so strong. And, that was the same way my mother was. She was a woman with a loud voice and a loud faith as well. And I can see that reflected in you. And I'm sure she would have been so glad to see that and to actually see you walking hand in hand with God. Sometimes it's very difficult for people to understand, what it is that people of faith are experiencing. And sometimes we don't need to understand. We just need to know that these people who love God and trust in Him try to live and do the best they can. Not that we are perfect or that anyone is perfect, but at least we are trying to live a life according to the scriptures and whatnot. So, as I told you before, I had my issues around my faith, but not enough to say I do not believe in God. I do not trust in Him. I just trust in what He said He will do, and that is to take care of us all. What is that scripture that says, the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head? And so one thing that we can clearly say is God has made a way for us to have a place to lay our head. And I'm so glad for you that you have Eric there, because I see that Eric is doing a wonderful job of taking care of you. You explained it to me. I see it for myself. And that's so important. In this day when a lot of people just can't enjoy that kind of a blessing, it's amazing that you have that blessing. So I trust that he will continue to do that. He's a good son. He certainly loves you very much, and I know he's going to continue to love you in a way that, is pleasing to you and pleasing to God. And I see that every time I look at the pictures of you and him and his son, and every time I hear your voice on the phone and you talk so fondly of him. That's amazing. It's amazing in this day and age that we have those kind of men in the world that look out for their parents, to take care of their parents. It's not an easy job, and you know it, and I know it. And I'm so glad that he has taken on that task. And it's not a task, one that feels like it's a lot of work. It's one that's built on love. And of course, love will do a lot of things that a lot of people will never understand, because love is not held back by the issues of the day, not by the struggles, not by things that make it seem hard. It is the fact that they love you so much that they would give everything to make sure that you're okay, even before they make sure their own selves are okay, or before his own self is okay. That's important. Somebody's willing to sacrifice you, and I can see that sacrifice happening on a daily basis. So congratulations to Eric for doing such a wonderful job. I was telling you that life in Florida wasn't that easy. I mean, as a child, I would never know what the difference was between living in Florida, living in Mississippi. I'm sure it would have been like the time before I actually understood what was going on. But if I could have understood what was happening during the time that you guys were living in Mississippi, then I would clearly see that my tough times weren't so tough at all. And that's the thing that my mother always let us know. It's like, you think you got it bad? Somebody's got it worse. And so I always trusted that if I had it bad, I could do better. If I could pull myself out of the situation, that's what I was going to do. And if I couldn't do it, I'd find somebody to help me do it. And it's so important to have people in your life that are willing to take the time to struggle with you and to work with you in order to make your life more abundant and more free. And that can happen in many ways. It happens like through church ministers, which is one way I kind of felt some semblance of peace, because the minister would come by the house and he would pick up some Sunday morning, and he would drive to the church. He'd park his car, and walk to pick us up because he was picking up other people, or he would just drive by, pick us all up, and take us in his car. His name was Brother Carl. I can't remember what his last name was, but he was an old jackleg preacher, as they say. You know, one of those guys that just came up from a hard life of living and drinking. He found God and found his way. And from that point on, his work was about ministering to people. He really cared about people. He took the time on every occasion to make sure that if he could, he'd pick us up, and he'd sometimes buy us snacks after church, and he'd come by and say hello to my mother. And eventually my mother also accepted God as her Lord and Savior, as we often say. Now, we know that's not an easy thing. It's like you start out in life thinking you have it all figured out, and you don't have it all figured out. So she had to figure it out just like we had to figure it out. But once she got attached to the Lord and attached to the Word, that was it. It was something that she was going to dedicate herself to, and she was going to make sure that her kids were dedicated to as well. And so we would go to the orange grove, and you know, when I first went out in the orange grove and we were working out in the fields, my mother just kind of let things go. She would do a lot of laughing and joking, and that's how she always was. She was a very fun-loving person, and she teased people on the bus, you know, so if you had a good joke for her, she had a good joke for you. But eventually her jokes became more about, you know, what God was going to do for her and what God was doing. And she still joked, of course, but she had that sense of humor with the recognition of God in her life. And that made such a big difference, you know, because one of the things I told you about was the fact that my mother believed in, she believed in reputation. That was one of the most important things to her. She said, if you're going to have anything in life, you got to have a good reputation. And she did. In the city of Bartow, if you knew anything about my mother, she meant what she said, and she said what she meant. But she was always kind to everybody. She just wouldn't put up with nothing. She wouldn't put up with much. She wouldn't put up with much mess anyway. And she was the kind of loving mother that would, you know, do everything she could to support us. When we were in high school playing sports, she would come to our sporting events, and when we were needed her support as far as little things we needed in school, she would give us the money for those things, and just do the best she could with what little she had. And she took that little and made a lot out of it. Those sons and daughters that she raised from the time we were just infants to grown men, she was accustomed to making sure that whenever we came to our house, we had the best of whatever she had. Now, she didn't have much, but whatever she had, you had. So, you know, one of the things I enjoyed going to my mother's house was just sitting down and talking to her and having a cup of coffee. And she'd have like her coffee made, it would be like, some Maxwell House probably, or Folgers, you know, the kind, not the kind you brew, but the kind you, the instant. And she put, pet milk in it. Yeah, she used pet milk or canned milk, evaporated milk in there, and put that sugar in there. And for some reason, that coffee was always good. So I always appreciated a good cup of coffee at my mother's house. But she was always one to talk about, you know, how she could, how we should look at the world and how we should think about our lives and what our outcomes are going to be. That meant, you know, doing the right thing so that you end up in the right way in life. And she would always encourage us, but she didn't mind chastising. She didn't believe what you were doing. She'd let you know that too. And, you know, on occasion we would argue, going back and forth. But at the end of the day, the back and forth didn't mean anything. I was going to be me and she was going to be her. But we still loved each other and still were always in one accord as far as, you know, family was concerned. So she never allowed any of that stuff to get in the way. And, you know, I made some errors in life as far as relationships I was in and things of that nature, but I always bounced back from it. My mother was always there, no matter what the situation was, in order to give me advice and give me direction. So I trusted her advice because I know that she came to me with a loving affection as a mother, and with care and concern that I would, do the right thing so that my life would be better. And it was. It was always better after having a conversation with her and about just following her way of living and a lot of what she believed in, and just really accepting the fact that life is a gift. I often look back at my mother before she went to church. My mother used to play a lot of James Brown, Temptations. Oh, she loved that music, and we would get those records, and we'd play those records too. And then she would actually go down to the juke joint. I think there was a picture I have of her. She's sitting at a club or it's probably a little club, what we call a little juke joint. And she was with my dad and with two other people, a couple. And it seemed like they were having a good time. So I know my mother used to enjoy going out and having a good time. But I think once she discovered the church, she started realizing that was something that she didn't want or need anymore. So she left that life behind. And that doesn't mean that I didn't go out and enjoy the same thing, because I also had a time in my life where I thought that was something I wanted to spend a lot of time doing, and so I did. But I never lost track of who I was as an individual and what I thought was important as far as my overall goals in life. And so I would say that, we shared a lot of the same experiences. We learned a lot of the same things. We enjoyed the church and the things that the church brought as far as a peace of mind, actually giving you some direction and things of that nature, so that, you wouldn't be out there struggling to figure out what path to take. It's always easier on that narrow road, the path that leads to godliness, versus that broad road that typically leads to a life of struggle and trouble. Because broad is the way, broad is the path, but narrow is the way. So it was important that we maintain some of our integrity and maintained that relationship with God to keep us on the right path. Now, that took me, down a path to going into the military and learning a lot about the world through the military, but also an aspiration to learn more as I, completed my education as well. Our brother Troy has a PhD in engineering, and I have like 4 master's degrees because I think education is important. I didn't go out to the PhD because I didn't have time. Mostly I'm working all the time, trying to make a living, taking care of family, making sure my kids have those kinds of things, those choices, those alternatives in life, things that I couldn't have in life, that they might have it more and have it more abundantly. So I'm proud to say that my son Christian, who you will meet and will talk to, he just finished his bachelor's degree last year, and he applied for the PhD program at the University of Illinois Chicago. And lo and behold, they accepted him into the PhD program right after the bachelor's program. So I was amazed. I certainly didn't have that kind of motivation, I suppose you could say, and drive with my bachelor's degree, because it was just something that I was doing to attain the degree. But I thought the degree was important, but I really didn't love education as much as I do now. So now, not only do I have the degrees, I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Dubuque in Iowa. I teach online, course in business analytics, and that's about business and data and how to use information in order to run your business and whatnot. And I enjoy teaching, just like I enjoy teaching Sunday school. So, I said, something about my son and his PhD, and my daughter, she's actually in her 3rd year at the North Central College as a bachelor's candidate. So she's got 1 more year after this, and she'll have her bachelor's degree. Now, both my kids are smarter than me. I'm just going to just be straight up. I mean, their vocabulary is better than mine. They're just very bright kids, and it's probably because at an early age, I just gave them big books. I say, read this book. I don't know if they ever read the books, but they understood the concept. They understood the fact that, I thought it was important for them to actually get an education and to learn as much as they could about life, and to learn as much as they could about things that are important as far as their career is concerned. And of course, bringing up in the church and giving the direction. They're both baptized. We're members of the Church of Christ, have been for all of my life. Of course, everybody says non-denomination, meaning that it's not within a body that's governed by a central head or anything. The head of the church is in heaven, as we say, right? But, I think that the faith that I have and gained through my life is something that they will find useful in their lives as well. And so it's just a matter of just living life and running across these different experiences and seeing how, I have lived, and hopefully I've given them enough tools, as well as their mother. She's a believer in Christ as well. Giving them enough faith and understanding so that they can go on in life and do great things as well. To make not only me proud, but if my mother were here, to make her proud as well. So I can't say that, she will have seen that, but it's so funny. I have this video recorded where my son was born at the time, and he's probably like maybe 2 years old. So I was so glad to see that she did have a chance to meet him before her passing in life. And that's always a wonderful thing. So, there's so much to think about and so much to talk about and so much that we will encounter as we continue to have these conversations. Like I said, it's important to me to know more about the family, to know more about you and how you move through life. I've heard so many good things from Eric, and I've heard it from you and how you have lived and made your way in life and what's been important to you. And those bits and pieces of information are really important to build this picture, or to create this image that people need to know and understand, to know who you are as a person and how you live your life. And, the one thing that we have to realize is everybody's not going to take the same path that we take. They're just not. But I'm not necessarily concerned about that. I think the most important thing for our children and the people around us, family and loved ones, is to live the best life that you can. And that means you have to do the right things in order to get that blessing. Because there's so many of us that have gone down these wrong paths and have not fully appreciated what it means to have life and to have it more abundantly. Yes, there's sacrifice. Like I said, when I grew up as a young man, we were poor as dirt. I mean, we were probably poorer than dirt. We were probably mud. But anyway, I said all that to say is that we suffered through a lot of things. There were times we didn't have, what everybody else had. So we went lacking and whatnot. But we learned to accept that because we knew at some point it didn't have to be that way. And all we had to do is really trust in our mother to give us the tools that we needed, but also the tools that we gained from church and to gain from school in order to make the right decisions in order to have a better life. So, I think it's going to be important for people to see the history of this family, to know more about, where we came from, what we suffered through, to know more about how we were treated as a people of color in a land that we didn't belong in and that was taken from indigenous people and then forced us to labor and toil in a land where we couldn't own anything. And it just hurts me so much to hear, every time I hear about the life of a sharecropper. It's bad enough to be a slave, but to hear about the life of the sharecroppers and what they suffered at the hands of the dominant race in this society, the ones who had all the power, who took all the power away from the indigenous people and disempowered black and people of color, and that include any person that was here outside of Europeans. It's just saddens me. But it also angers me enough to say, get up and do something about it. And that is not to let this history pass, but to capture this history in a way that it gets handed down from generation to generation. Now, we don't have all the technology in the world, but we have enough technology at our hands that we can certainly make some useful information available to the future descendants, those who will come from us and come from our children and come from our grandchildren, et cetera, Lord's will. So I hope that, having this conversation with you and introduce myself to you is something that you might find useful. And, I'm looking forward to the day I actually see you in person and meet Eric and whatnot, and that we'll get to know each other. And we can just have a wonderful conversation about, you and all of your family. And I certainly, like I said, want to capture the information. I want to get some recipes. I want to hear about some songs. I want to hear about the games. I want to know about the places you guys went, what you ate, the types of pictures you already taken, what your aspirations in life seem to be or were, during that time. All the information is still somewhere, and we might not be able to capture it all, but we should bring enough of it together and be able to paint a really pretty picture of what it was like to be a part of this family in history, and now in the present, and hopefully in the future. So I'm going to post this on YouTube so that Eric can get it and show you. Hey Eric, how's it going? I just want to send you guys my love, not only to you, but to all the family. So to anyone who might be interested in the family, please feel free to share it with them. Like I said, we lived in Florida, and I guess I didn't go into this. We lived in Florida, so we were far away from the rest of the family. And I knew about Inez because I got a letter from you, Inez. My sister knew about you. We knew about Bobby because Bobby came down. I didn't know anything much about rest of the other sisters. Because I don't think we had a picture of the entire family. We had a picture of, your mother and my grandmother. We had a picture of a few folks, but no family photo. So I never had a family photo where I saw everyone, all 8, 9 family members, your siblings and whatnot, my mother's sisters and brothers. Never had one of those photos. And then throughout life, of course, you know how we all get busy living life, trying to make a living and doing all those things. And by not having that connection early in life where we knew who a cousin was or knew who uncle was or even met any of those folks, any of our family members of that capacity, we just never grew into it. It was never something that we were like, oh, we got to go out and meet all these family members, because like I tell people all the time, we didn't know. My mother really didn't talk a lot about her extended family. She was more focused on making sure that we ate every day, making sure that we had what we needed. But, having heard from you and heard from others, she did have conversations, calls, and whatnot that we didn't know much about. I'm just thankful for Bobby, because Bobby made a lot of this information available recently. And when I say recent, I mean the last, 10 so years. More so about, getting to know her, and that we had family members that we did meet eventually. Like I met Lizzie Smith, Aunt Lizzie, when I came up here, probably about maybe 10 years after I came up here because I knew she was up here. And my brother, I see that there's a photo of my brother and my two brothers with Lizzie. So I think those photos were taken here. Taken here in Chicago. Otherwise, they were taken at the funeral, my mother's funeral. So, um, but I didn't know anything about most of the family members that lived in Chicago. The only person I knew about was Lizzie, and nobody else was mentioned. When in my experience, just kind of getting to know her, my brother didn't know very much about other family members. I think my brother knew about DC, and he might have met DC, but I don't know how long ago that was. All the other family members that preceded my mother, like we didn't know much about Hattie Mae, Christina. My mother said she didn't know where she was, I think, and she didn't know much about her. So I could ponder on that forever. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I think the most important thing at this time is making up for lost time. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to not only hopefully seeing you, but also, Lord's will, seeing Jerry. I've met Bertha twice, once at my mother's funeral, and of course at Lizzie's funeral. And she's always a blessing as well, and her husband, Andrew. So I know there are other family members out here in Chicago that are cousins that I'm trying to get to know better and find out more about them so I can learn more about their parents and their history. I do enjoy trying to trace everybody's roots back to the main root, of course, by going into Ancestry.com and just learning, how to pull all this information together so that we can have a reference that we can use to talk to one another. I look at each one of us as ambassadors for the families. So Eric is the ambassador that I know for you because he opened up the door for me to have this conversation with you and to know more about you. Like I'm probably ambassador for my mother, Lily, because I'm the one that's reaching out and trying to find out more. Of course, yeah, I can say that, but Bobby would probably say that she's an ambassador since she opened up all the doors. Let's put it this way. Bobby's the New York ambassador. I'm now the Chicago ambassador. She's such a wonderful person. I love her dearly. When I met her, of course, I didn't know what to expect, but I was so pleased and so happy when I met her, and I've been happy ever since. I'm thankful and blessed to have her as a sister. So I won't, take up any more time. I just wanted to let you know that I was serious about reaching out to you and extending my mother's and our family's arms of love in your direction to let you know that we care about you and we're praying for you, and certainly hoping that God bless you with a much, much, much happy and long life. And hopefully, we have some of the same genes that you have, so we can live a very long time too, with your right mind and with the heart of gold that just keeps pumping and giving more and more each day. So I'll say this, God is pleased with those who love Him, and He's certainly pleased with you. And I can see Him living in you, and I appreciate what He has done for you, but I also appreciate what you're doing for me by opening your doors to me and letting me get to know you. So it's almost about 30 minutes. I wanted to make sure I didn't say too much, and I didn't want to end too quickly. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of who I am, and I look forward to more conversation with you in the future. God bless and keep you, and may you have peace throughout all the days of your life. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.